And welcome to the latest edition of Woodsy's Footy Club Tour. And, mate, none other than one of my great mates, Dene Halatau. How you going, buddy?
Woodsy, I'm going well, mate. How are you?
I'm very good, mate. I'm pretty excited today because, I've been around 5 clubs, a lot of players, and, mate, you are up there. You're probably the pedestal in the top 3 medalists, mate.
Oh wow,
Yeah.
I'm honoured, mate. Thank you. No, it's good to come on the show. I see all your social media and all the people you have on, so I was happy to get the call up.
So, mate, talk to us. Firstly, we want to go for a little bit of the career and then obviously talk about what you're doing at the moment. But you're a young bloke from New Zealand. How did you get across to Australia?
Well, my dad back in the 80s was looking for work. He was actually shearing sheep back in New Zealand, believe it or not, for a Kiwi to be shearing sheep. But he was shearing sheep in New Zealand, and late 80s was a big construction boom in Australia, particularly for commercial spaces and high-rise buildings and whatnot. So he come over to Australia to find some work as a rigger and a scaffolder, and obviously there was plenty. So he decided to pack the family up, as a lot of Kiwis were doing back in the late 80s, early 90s. Packed the family up, and we got on a plane. I was only 4 years old when we come over. So first stop Sydney and never left. That was basically it. So it was all for
One-way ticket.
Yeah, one-way ticket pretty much. Dad chasing some work. We all came with him, and landed in Sydney. What a place to land in, and that was as simple as it was, just chasing work for the old man.
That's crazy, isn't it? So, as a young bloke, did you always want to? Because there's a lot of young Kiwi kids that I know. Their aspirations to play for the All Blacks. Did you always want to play for the All Blacks, or was sport your thing?
No, it wasn't. Definitely wasn't the All Blacks, because Dad was a leaguey when he played when he was younger. So he played league back in New Zealand, and he and my mum were actually involved with starting up a leagues club in our local area. So they started a club, or helped start a club, and he was playing A grade for them. So it was always kind of leaning towards league. Now I can't remember if he played rugby at school when he was younger, but it was just league. And because we got here so young, like, our exposure was follow what Dad was doing. He got us into a local league side, and then it was just league from then on. So we still had a soft spot for the All Blacks growing up, because they were the grouse. They still are the grouse, and
They're the best. They're the best organisation in the world.
Yeah, so it was an easy follow, right? Being a Kiwi and having one national team that was doing pretty well. So definitely followed them through my young years.
And then, so your juniors, you're with Marylands, is that right?
Well, before that, my first club was Wentworthville Magpies.
Oh,
So,
we were Wendy Magpies.
Yeah, so
That's a huge club.
yeah, massive club. And that was the reason that I ended up there, was because it was so big. My dad had asked around a bit. We were living like around the hills area, which there wasn't a lot of league around there, but he asked around, and they said Wentworthville, Parramatta, not too far away. It's a good competition, and it's a big club. So it was just Dad asking a few friends and got us into that club, and never really looked back. It was such a good club to get involved with early days. Always good club events, big days. Ringrose Park was always packed. So it was a good initiation for a young bloke into footy. And then when I was 12, I flipped over to Maryland. So
So how did you get from? Because that's Parramatta district.
Yes.
So how did you get from Para? Because didn't you play your junior footy with the Tigers?
I did. Oh, no, I played Matthews at Para.
Oh, Matthews at Para,
Yeah, I played Harold Matthews at Para, which was under 16s at the time. Did like the summer coaching school / development squad things in 13s and 14s there, which most districts do. And then, after the Matthews year, we had a really good year, won the comp, undefeated, had a really good side, and it was enjoyable. But I was kind of like a fringy, like I wasn't playing like a lot of minutes. I was getting bits here and there. And then when it came time to trial for the SG ball side, which was 18s at the time, so I was turning 17, trying to play a year up. I didn't actually make the side. I got cut from I didn't even make like a training squad or anything.
Like a summer squad.
Yeah, didn't make the summer squad. So I got cut, and I'd actually I'd met Gary Freeman the year
Wiz.
before, the Wiz. Yeah, so I met the Wiz in a New South Wales academy team. Academy teams are just like throw together, put your hand up, you want to play. They basically just give you some extra coaching. It's kind of like an aspirational team that you can just apply for. And Wiz took a team of us to England, and we went on a tour. It was all paid for by ourselves and fundraising.
So how old were you at this stage?
16. So
you travelled to England.
Yeah, with a bunch of dads that put their hand up to
I would have put my hand up
to be management, right? So they wanted
now?
to coach and manage and whatnot. And we had 2 full squads go over. So that was sort of in between the Matthews year and then trying out for SG Ball. And then Wiz said he must have heard that I didn't make the squad over at Parramatta, and he said, I can get you a run at Balmain if you want. There's some space in the SG Ball squad. Go have a few trials, train up, see how you go. And I was lucky enough to get a start in the SG Ball side there. And I was a Balmain Tiger from then on.
how good's that? So and you worked your whole way up through the ball, flag,
Yep.
reserve grade.
So first year, played ball when I was 17, got a few flag games in as well that year. Next year, same thing, played SG ball and then into Jersey flag. I think I got a reserve grade game at the end of the year, which I would have been 18 then. I was playing like centres and wing and fullback. I was like an outside back utility, but I wasn't that fast. I just ended up playing there, and then yeah, got a reserve grade start the year later, and then it was sort of like just bump.
Who was the coach of that reserve grade squad?
Peter Camero.
Oh, yep, yeah,
nice. So he coached that side back then. Jersey flag, Al Hedger. We had like some actually. Steve Speechley was my first coach at the Tigers in SG ball, and then the Wiz took over. So Speechley couldn't.
How was the Wiz as a coach?
Yeah, he was good. He's pretty energetic, as everyone knows when they bump into and meet him. It's like firm handshake, high, like upbeat, up tempo sort of guy. We definitely underachieved. We didn't win a game in SG ball under Wiz. And we thought we were going to do really well because we have Gary Freeman, club great, coaching us, and Kiwi International, obviously, someone that I actually loved as a kid growing up as well. But yeah, we didn't have much success. But he trained us hard. Like I learned quickly how to sort of switch on and become a hard trainer.
Well, there's one thing I remember growing up, mate. The hardest training I ever did was Haramat's SG ball.
Yeah,
because it was just local coaches that were just taking the reign.
Well, they want to teach you what it's like to be in the system, right? And the first thing that you can do is flog your team and say, hey, this is how hard it's going to be when you get to first grade. And it's a shock. It's the first time you've experienced it as a kid. You've trained probably hard with your junior clubs at times, but it's nothing compared to being in a rep. Yeah, so in a rep squad. So that was the initiation.
And then, so when was the first like moment that you go, all right, I'm going to have a crack at this and playing first grade?
To be honest, it probably wasn't until the year before, of the year of debuting. Like
Really?
I was just playing footy because I loved it, and I was in the rep system, so that was a bonus. And I didn't mind the training. Like the training was like I could do it, and I had some success on the field. Like I was playing well enough, and I was just enjoying being a junior rep player into a like sort of flag and reserve grade player, and just having some success on the weekends and being a part of a team. And then it would have been 2003 pre-season. I got to do like a couple of sessions with the first grade squad. Didn't get like called in full time or anything. I just did like a handful of sessions, and then I strung about 3 or 4 games together in Reggie's where I scored a couple of tries. I was playing the centres and I was playing well enough that Sheensy gave me a call and said, come in and start training with us. We're keen to have you start training with us.
So were you working at this time as well?
Yeah, I was working at a video shop, Video Easy, not around anymore. The Video Easy, I was at Epping Video Easy.
Oh, wow.
So I was literally scanning videos for customers and going to uni at the same time. And
what were you doing at uni?
Health science. Yeah, so
still doing it, or?
Yeah, I didn't finish it. It's one of my biggest regrets, to be honest with you, not finishing it. I got a long way through it actually. I finished I got over halfway, and then I just turfed it because I just wasn't interested anymore. That's not a good lesson for anyone listening or watching. That's youngster, get your uni degree and get through it. But yeah, I got a few games together, and Sheensy brought me up, and then it was just like train.
Yep.
Play another couple of good games in Reggie's, and then injuries, opportunity.
And then what happened there? Because you said injuries, opportunities. Sorry, one more before we get that. Was there a core group of players that you went through Harrow Match SC Ball that come with you through flag and reserve grade? Because you come through a pretty good junior players because obviously a couple of years later you win the comp. With those, was Benji in that?
So Benji, I didn't play any junior reps with.
No.
He went straight from high school to first grade.
Unbelievable.
So that was the jump for Benji. But like Robbie was in the junior rep system there. Bronson Harrison. There's a few guys that sort of were a bit older than me that played flag with, like Nick Bradley, Galileo.
Winger.
Marco Halloran, Luke Isaka, Balin Couples. There's a few guys that ended up playing first grade like a few years before me or a couple of years before me. So that was good to sort of get up into first grade and see those guys around and feel comfortable being around those guys. But they were the guys I was around, and obviously Bronson went on to play for New Zealand, win a World Cup, and Robbie ended up playing for Australia and New South Wales and having been probably tied with Benji as the best West Tigers player ever. You know what I mean? So those guys obviously had some success in front of them.
Just off the foot, like off your playing chat. Do you think it's funny how they're all together now? Because even Bronson's doing pathways at West Tigers.
Yeah. It's they've all reunited the crew, and even like Johnny Morris, right? Johnny,
Yeah, bomber. Yeah.
he came in at 2006 to 2009, I think he played, and he played every game for those 3 years that he played there.
What a professional, eh?
Yeah, super professional guy. Partnered up with Benji. They become really tight, and he's back there now. Paddy Richards is doing some kicking and some edge work. Hino's assistant coach, blue shirt. Like, it's the old gang together. So
It is, isn't it?
yeah, it's good to see them.
Are you happy for them? Like,
Yeah,
Yeah.
my word, yeah. You know, it's kind of like maybe 4 or 5 years ago, you think, how good would it be if like a whole bunch of that old crew got together and started working at the club in some capacity? They're all in like significant roles now, and they're all those guys I mentioned. They're great fellas. They know their footy. Like Benji's a genius when it comes to rugby league. Robbie's the same. Robbie's a roller coaster, but he loves his footy. He's passionate about it.
he's just a win. Oh, he wants to win.
Yeah, he's so competitive, and Hino's the worker, right? He'll bring the work ethic and
And chat.
And chat,
good
yeah.
banter.
Yeah,
But
yeah.
you know the thing, one thing that sets me out from all those blokes, they care about West Tigers.
Yep.
You're not getting someone from outside in that's trying to start a career of being a coach. Like, yeah, Benji is starting a career, but he actually has a genuine passion to be a West Tigers legend, like wants the club to be better.
Yeah, well, you talk to people from Clubland, and they want to know what their DNA's about, right? And you've been to a few clubs, and that's a search that every club goes through with their teams, is like, here's what we stand for, here's what we're about. And it's a little bit sometimes like romanticised, like everyone looks back and thinks about old times, but there's something that always comes through from bygone years. And when I was at the Dogs, I felt it. Like, there was some aspects of the Dogs when I got there that came from the 80s and 90s, and it was definitely apparent. And at the Tigers, it's a short history. Like, they're a very young club, but those guys are really key figures in that history. So they do know what it's about, and it's good to see them there.
Yeah, it's really good to see, isn't it? And I'm similar with you. Like, when I was at the Dogs, I didn't really feel that much because they was going through a lot of change.
It was a transition period.
But then when I went to Cronulla, I could feel the culture at Cronulla. It was just old boys, like, probably not the best talent, but geez, they worked hard. And that's what bred through. And I think that's what Benji and that are going to do. And I think it's a really good thing for him. But back to 2003, your debut. How does that come about for Dene Halatau?
So as I said, I've done a few training sessions with the squad over a few weeks, and then I was getting ready for a reserve grade game the weekend that the Tigers were playing Manly. I think I can't even remember what round it was, but it was sort of mid-season, and I think it was like the Saturday morning. So I was in my mind getting ready to play reserve grade the following day, and I got a call from Sheensy early in the morning, get yourself to training. We've got a few injury clouds, so get in the car, come to training, and man, I immediately got nervous, got excited, probably fumbled my words with Sheensy, like trying to thank him for the opportunity, and I got myself to training. Robbie was actually brought into the side earlier that week because there was an injury to one of our hookers. I can't remember if it was Mearsy or if it was Darren Senna. But one of them was carrying an injury, and they were likely going to be out. So Robbie was already in the 17.
So he was playing already. He
was already playing. And I got there, and then the injury was Chris Patterson, so front rower, and he went down, couldn't get through like a fitness test before warm up. So I replaced a front rower on the bench as a 88 kilo centre from reserve grade. And I was scratching my head trying to figure out where I fit in. I didn't know where I was going to fit into that, but I don't think Sheensy knew at the time either. He just wanted to reward me and
at least he backed
give me a crack. Yeah, and he backed me into 3 minutes, the last 3 minutes of the game.
Hey, it's 3 minutes more than what a lot of people have done.
It was a weird experience, eh? Like, I go, I'm on my way to the game and I'm nervous as heck. Like, stopping a few times to go to the bathroom, get there, and you're about to play the top grade at Leichhardt Oval. It was Leichhardt
you debuted at Leichhardt Oval,
Leichhardt against Manly. So
holy grail.
Yeah, so it was a pretty big moment, and I'd organised tickets for family, friends. I had a bunch of people there watching. And I'm just sitting on the bench, just waiting, just watching the clock go by. Robbie gets on before halftime, and I go, okay, it's got to happen soon. And then it just kept going by, and I go, it was a bit of an anticlimax.
Yeah.
I'm doing laps up and down the sideline, looking up at the coach's box as you do when you're keen to get on. And then there was probably a try scored by Manly to put him like sort of out of range. They ended up getting a comfortable lead on us, and then he just put me in the centres. Nick Bradley come off, and then I had I tackled Steve Menzies, which was the highlight of my first grade debut, was tackling Steve Menzies because I idolised him as well. And also tackled Jason Ferris. He was a halfback for them, and I put a good shot on him. And weird experience. I put him on the ground. I picked him up and dropped him on his back, and he's just laying on the ground looking at me and going, "Hey, good shot, good shot." And I was like, "Oh, yeah, okay, thanks, man."
Didn't expect that in
Yeah,
first
it
grade.
was weird. So yeah, that was my memory of my first game. Like, it's pretty clear. Yeah.
Don't you think it's a bit different now? Like, remember, like you see all the young kids debut now. There's videos and like Sheensy would have just told you on Captain's Run. Like,
Yeah, that was pretty
how
much it.
different
Yeah,
is
yeah.
the era's changed, haven't they?
Yeah, it is. It's yeah, you see there's like a lot of things posted on socials from clubs about the big moment, and you know, I love seeing it. Like, I get goosebumps watching
Yeah.
people debut. Like Sam Stonestreet at
Yep.
Sharks the other week, right? Scores a try in the southwestern corner in front of all his friends and all his like De La Salle teammates and that. Like, that
So
was,
good.
I was up on my seat in the commentary box, just like getting goosebumps for him.
It's like that, isn't it? Like just for him to just that moment in front of his like
Yeah,
you played 3 minutes. I played 18 minutes in my debut. Like and if we got to score a try in front of all our family and friends, mate, how like
Yeah.
you envy him, but you're also so happy for him. At the
yeah,
same
yeah,
time.
100%. Yeah, yeah.
So how many more games did you play that year?
I think nine or 10. So I managed to get through the majority of the rest of the season.
And
Like,
you got more than 3 minutes in the next couple of games.
yeah, I got a few starts, which was good. Played against the Sharks at Leichhardt. In my next up, I started centres,
Yep.
and yeah, I got a couple of meat pies
Oh,
in that game at Leichhardt Oval Sunday afternoon.
How good's
Sun
that?
beaming down, big crowd. It was pretty awesome, and it's actually Terry Hill that put me over.
Oh, really?
Yeah, Terry Hill put me over for my
Yeah.
first couple of tries, and obviously sad news in the last week with his
Yeah.
pass. He's such a character, and for a young guy coming into first grade,
Yeah.
to be around someone who was so prominent in rugby league, like he was
Mhm.
on the Footy show, and everyone knew his resume because he'd already played for Australia and New South Wales, been involved in some big moments. It was
Yeah.
for me as a 20-year-old kid to get put over the try line by Tez. He called me out to. He goes, "Dino, just run a hole, run a hole."
Oh,
And,
really? So just told you.
yeah, and he skipped out, bang, put me over.
You got any stories for us on Tez? Because there's a lot of people that are PG rated, obviously.
Yeah, yeah, no, like he, it's funny that I'm in a chat group with some old boys,
Yep.
and actually, I think you're in that chat group. No, you're not. You won't be yet because you need to retire before you
Yeah,
get
I'm
in
not
that
in that yet, mate.
before you get in that chat group. But yeah, there's some stories being shared in that group, just remembering Tez, and yeah, I guess he always used to pick on Corey Pearson quite a
Oh,
bit.
really?
Yeah, he used to get into Corey Pearson, who's a champion guy, Pearso. and
He's running Ladbrokes or Sportsbet now.
I'm not too
He's working
sure.
one
Yeah,
of those,
he's been working in betting for a long time. He used to rip into him. He used to rip into Mickey Butner. He
Oh,
used to
yep.
come to the gym and ask Mickey how many tickles he was going to make on the weekend because he said he couldn't tackle, and he ripped into Robbie Farah quite a bit when he came into grade.
Oh,
'cause,
really? Jeez,
yeah.
Robbie wouldn't like that.
No, well, they went back at each other because
Oh,
you know
okay.
how confident Robbie is,
Yep.
right? And Tez would try and shorten him up and say, "Okay, young fella, like, know your place," sort of thing.
Okay,
And then
fella.
and then Robbie would come back at him, and then they'd just be into each other.
Tez probably would have sort of half respected that
Yeah,
because that would
yeah.
have been young Tez when he was young.
Yeah, I think a lot of those guys that when they see a bit of front from young guys,
Mhm.
they still want to rein them in, but they probably appreciate it a bit because you're right, he did carry that when he was in his younger days as well.
Yeah, he was a funny man, and obviously condolence to all his family
Yeah,
out there
definitely.
and friends. And then next year, obviously, so are you full time or are you still?
Yeah, I'd signed up to go full time
Yep.
at the end of that season, so got an upgrade extension, which is football players' favourite
No more work.
words.
No more work. Be a
Upgrade.
footy player 24/7.
Yeah, drop the video job. I wasn't scanning videos anymore.
So
Six weeklies for $6.
Was Tight Ass Tuesdays?
Yeah,
Isn't it, as
that
well?
was it. Yeah.
So how did you feel like yourself? Like obviously you played first grade the year before, but you weren't a full-time contract player. You've gone next year. You signed. You've upgraded. Are you sort of pinching yourself a little bit?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Yep.
You know, like as I said, when I was playing footy as a youngster and even coming through those rep grades, I didn't really see myself as being a first grader until it actually became a
Yep.
reality. And I still loved the game, and I was pinching myself. Like, I'm such a fan of the game too, even more so now that I've retired. I watch a lot more football, and obviously with my commentary gig at the ABC, I'm covering a lot of games and watching a lot of footy. So yeah, I was pinching myself for sure that I was at that level playing first grade alongside the likes of Terry Hill and Mark O'Neill and Darren Senna and Brett Hodgson and whoever else came in after that. You know, like it's
There's a fair squad. Back
there's
then,
some
mate.
good players, man, and yeah, it was cool to be able to get to do that as a full time gig.
And then so you got your full season in 2004. I think you played for the Kiwis. Was it the end of the year? Was that your first tour with them?
Yeah, so 2004, I started the season. Had a big off. You know, your first off season in first grade.
Did you train the whole break?
Yeah, so just like
Young
I'm
kids.
gonna come and hit the ground running, right? So trained all through the break, got into the preseason, felt the grouse, like I just felt so fit, so strong. Put a few kilos on. So coming into 04, I was
So what are you, 92 this time?
92 kilos, and then got through like a pretty good season. I think I played all but 2 or 3 games. Maybe I missed a few through injury. And then I got called up into the Kiwi squad to tour at the end of the year, and it was an experience. Like, it was come on tour with the squad. There's a few young guys in that squad that probably weren't going to get much game time.
So who were those young blokes?
Sonny Bill was one of the young guys at the time. Roya Satazi. Who else was in there that was youngish? Not Jamal Elisa wasn't young then. He was a bit older.
Was that like Vatuvai? Was he?
Yeah, I think Money might have come in the year after that.
Okay,
maybe a couple of years after that, but Sonny Bill's probably the Frank Pilatua, I think. Frankie Pritchard, not Frank Pilatua. Frankie Pritchard would have been close to it then as well, but there was a little wave of guys coming through then. Louis Anderson, if you remember him.
Yeah, I remember him, yeah. Spent a lot at Catalan's Dragons.
Yeah. And anyway, I went away not expecting to get game time at all, just more for the experience and be around the squad, and ended up getting a couple of tests in, one against France and then one against England right at the back end, the last test against England. So.
How's it? So who's your first game against France? Was
France,
it?
yeah.
When you're setting up for the Haka, because I speak to a lot of blokes, like, I know when I was playing for Australia and you stand alongside it, and mate, it gives me goosebumps. How's it for you as proud Kiwi, New Zealander?
Yeah.
How's it feeling doing that?
Well, if I'm honest, I was really nervous of stuffing up. Because obviously there's a lot of significance to doing that before a match and for a national team from New Zealand. And as I said, I came to Australia when I was quite young. Even though you listen to me talk, I'm Aussie. I've lived here my whole life, right? But I always supported the Kiwis when I was a kid, and my dad always drilled that into me. And so getting the opportunity to do the Haka for the first time, I was like, this is pretty big. I better not stuff it up. So I got, if you remember, a back rower from the Warriors and played for the Storm as well, Wairangi Korpu. He was the man that taught me. He's very strong in his Māori culture and speaks fluent Māori. And,
really?
Yeah, and he hosts some TV shows in New Zealand for Māori TV. And anyway, he taught me how to perform the Haka. And he said to me, he goes, look, don't worry about it. If you mess up, that's okay. But as long as you do it with pride and with mana, with strength, then you'll be right. You'll get through it, and you'll get better and better as you go. The more you do it, hopefully you get more opportunities to do it. And
so good to see.
Yeah, so I'm pretty sure I stuffed it up in my first go, but it was pretty cool to do it. Like Ruben Wiki was playing that game as well. So
as long as you're not like Jason Nightingale and smiling when he did it that time. Do you remember that?
I played with him in that game too. Yeah, Gypsy, he's again legend of a bloke.
You know, one thing I'd love to know, like when I watch obviously the Hakas, there's so many different versions. Like, do you prepare that all week, or is it something you brought up as a kid that you know all these different versions of them?
Yeah, there'd be different versions based on like potentially where people are from, like from their area, from also maybe schools that they go to or teams that they play for. They might have their own version of a Haka. The one that we've done traditionally for the Kiwis is Kamate. And there's sometimes been versions that we've changed up. So before the 2008 centenary test, we sort of added a little like a few differences to it.
That was the one at the SCG?
Yes. Yeah. So it was to be a little bit more inclusive of the demographic. So there was some Samoan in there at the start, and it was just a different version of a Haka, just to sort of signify a different time or a different moment or whatever. You do see different versions. The All Blacks do different versions as well.
Because I've seen they're sort of like in a V, aren't they?
Yeah.
And they get down on the ground.
They change formations, but they work with and we did as well in the Kiwis. You do work with like cultural experts that will come and sort of walk through. If we're going to change something, here's a significance of the meaning, and this is what it's going to look like.
Oh, wow.
And,
that's something I've always wondered. I've always wondered that because, like, I remember the old traditional where they just, I think, what did you say it was called?
Kamate.
Yeah, that's the normal one. But then as sort of we've got, gone on in the years, they've sort of changed it up now. And you've got blokes that are standing in the, I think Fisher Harris, he had something in his hand.
He might have had a taiha or like some sort of weapon, right?
Yeah, a weapon, yeah. So, and that was something I never saw growing up as a kid.
Yeah. It's just to sort of show a little bit more of the culture. And,
it's mad. It gives you goosebumps.
Yeah, it does. It's pretty cool.
And how was it when you ran out? Like, unbelievable?
Yeah, unreal. The French game was weird because it was like in a stadium. It was in Carcassonne, actually, which is like south of France. actually where Robin Hood, Prince of Thieves. It's an old
Oh,
reference
really?
for a lot of the
The movie was
listeners,
done
but the
there.
old movie with
Oh,
Kevin Costner
wow.
was, I think it was filmed around that castle there. But yeah, it was a French crowd, not huge, but still pretty cool.
Mm-hmm.
The following test that I played, which was up in Hull, I can't remember which stadium it was at, but that one was pretty awesome. We'd already lost 2 games in the series, and the Tigers had actually flown my parents over for the match.
Oh, how good!
So they organised to get them over to watch the game. They literally arrived at the ground 10 minutes before kickoff, and we're in the next to the players' enclosure as we're lining up for the anthem. So I looked up and seen them there.
Did you know that was coming, or?
I wasn't supposed to be a surprise, but one of my cousins actually blew the surprise when I was speaking to her earlier that week.
Yep.
She goes, "Oh, I bet you can't wait to see your parents coming over there." And I was like, "Huh, my parents?"
What are you talking about?
Yeah. So she busted it for them, but
that would have been an unreal
it was
experience to
so
see your
good, man.
parents.
Yeah, goosebumps, bit emotional. So
As you do, mate.
yeah.
Does it bring a bit of a tear to the eye now to see how passionate the players are? Like when you hear them, like we were only doing Anzac Day the other day, and Charles Nickel Cook's Day, tears was just coming down his eyes.
Yeah, it's great to see when there's some meaning behind the game. Like if it's Anzac Day where there's a significance for obviously both countries, Australia and New Zealand, and the freedoms that we sort of we experience now, or if it's representing your country. One of our old teammates, Kevin Nangama, when
Yep.
he plays for Fiji,
Yep.
they sing the anthem or they sing their hymn, and he's
Yeah.
in full tears, right? Like it's cool.
Unbelievable.
It's cool to see that passion to play a sport. You know what I mean? And represent your country or acknowledge people gone before you.
It's unreal, mate. And like I said, the players that have played there before you, as something we always say, is not your jersey. You're just trying to put in a better place for the next bloke.
Yeah, well said, man.
2005 comes around. So I can't remember what round it was, but you were coming in 11th.
Yeah, mid-season. Yeah,
Yeah.
We were long shots to make the finals, let alone win a premiership. 150 to 1, I think it was at one point, as bad as it got.
Wow.
Yeah, we were not travelling well, but we had a lot of belief in.
Well, that's what I was going to ask you. Where did the belief come from?
We'd done a lot of work. Obviously, every team trains hard in the preseason, but whatever we did in the preseason, we knew that we had a good formula for the way we wanted to play footy. But we had, and this has been spoken about a few times, I've heard players speak about it, but we had an extras board up, right? And you've probably seen extras boards at training before. Whiteboard, all the players listed up on the left, days of the week. Go in and fill out whatever you've done that week to make yourself a better player. And that season, that board was full regularly. Like it was like week. It was just like things that you wanted to do to make yourself better. Didn't have to be a flog session. It could have been like 100 passes left to right.
Yep.
You know, it's just something that you were going to do to be more improved than you were the week before. And I think seeing that up every week gave us all confidence. Knew that we could rely on the bloke next to us or either side of us because they'd done something that week to make themselves better. And all those little percentages of improvement across the board meant to a bigger improvement as a team. And as we sort of got on a bit of a roll and we found ourselves in tough moments in games, we're coming out on the more positive side more often because we just had that belief and trust in each other.
Having that board as well, if you didn't have something up for that week, would you feel like you've let everyone down?
Yeah. Like I wouldn't say it was embarrassment, but maybe a little bit embarrassed that you hadn't done the work that your teammate was doing. And it's a tricky one because you don't want to be showy and say, I'm just throwing this up here because I want to look good or whatever and suck up to the coaches and say that I'm doing something. It did really become an accountability thing for us and it had meaning. So we were recognising when everyone was doing things for each other.
Yep.
And there were some guys that maybe didn't have things up there every week, but often they were guys that, you know, they were doing a lot maybe in the game or, you know, they had some good parts of the game that didn't really need to, they could have those down weeks where they didn't have to go too far into it, but more often than not, it was full. And that was, it was a good accountability piece.
Well, it showed the way he's played. And, you know, Tim Sheen's, he always said, was that one of your mantras, was it to score more points than other teams? Like,
yeah,
because I've never heard anyone really say it because no one says it. But like, was it one of those like, oh, if they score 20, we score 21?
Yeah, look, I can't remember exactly when or if Sheensy said that exact thing, but it was definitely an attacking mindset in that group. Like we put a lot of time into his structures, and you've been coached by him. You know how thorough he is with structure and knowing your role and hitting points on the field and all those sorts of things and the purpose behind everything you do in a set. So we did have some structures that we all had to know, but he was well prepared. Like we he had his game sheets, which you'll remember well, that had
The rewrites.
your rewrites. You had to rewrite it, so you embed that stuff in your head. And but he had really good knowledge on other teams and key indicators, which every team does that work.
Yep.
But Sheensy was meticulous about it, and so yeah, we wanted to score more points, but we also had a good idea of what teams were going to do and how we could stop that defensively.
And talk to us, when did you think Benji was going to be an absolute out-and-out superstar?
From the moment he come down and
Really?
debuted, yeah, like 03. He, as I said, school kid. I'd met him maybe once or twice through the preseason, but when you got those big preseason,
Yeah, so many people.
all-ins, like you don't really talk to people that
Yep.
much. But he come down for, he literally flew down for the game that he debuted that week because he's still at school.
Wow.
And he flew down on the Tuesday morning, jumped in the session, and then first touch in the game, I think he's gone bang bang off his left foot and almost split them. He probably did split them actually. Just got collared because he's only quite little.
It was a different sidestep, wasn't it, to what we were used to?
Yeah, well, he got so much airtime when he jumped to make the step.
That's right.
And you kind of like one of the things you work with speed coaches before, like having like quick contact with the ground is really important. So being in the air, you're not moving. You can't change your direction midair. But the jump just threw people off was so deceptive. And as soon as he hit the ground, man, he'd take off like
That is
acceleration,
wasn't
3
it?
meters in one step, like in one direction, because he was so powerful through his hips and his rump. He had a big ass, Benji.
He still does, yeah.
Yeah.
He's got good legs too, like good
He's
calves.
athletic, yeah.
A lot of people, when you see blokes get older, their shape in their legs and that sort of goes away. He's still got it. Like you watch him walk around because he still trains with the boys.
Yeah, I know. He still carves him up probably.
That's his. You know what he's like. The game against Cronulla, like that move that he put on that's just
the front on shot of him going bang, bang, bang.
But he's not even looking at them,
through.
Dino.
Yeah, it's pretty goosebumps watching that again as well. And then the no look pass out to his
But it
right.
wasn't like a 2-3 minute. It was like a 20-meter no look cutout.
Yeah, and he's like, it's David Peachy at the back too, right?
No,
Peach is a gun fullback, very intuitive, like can just read plays really well, and he was bamboozled by him.
And was a lot of the stuff you did instinctive, or was it just prepared? Because a lot of it was just punching holes hard because you didn't have the biggest pack.
Yep.
But he's had a lot of mobile forwards yourself, Heinington's, Bengalias, Mark O'Neill. But he's always poked your nose through.
Yeah, I think like there was a lot of structure and we did stick to the plan quite a bit. But when you have someone like Benji in your team and Hodjo at the back, Hodjo's a phenomenal football player. Like he's one of my favourite teammates that I've played with, just purely from a skill and footy IQ level. So when you got those guys around, you know that you got to be prepared for something out of the ordinary, which is what Benji produced often. But we had some good structure that, again, knowing your role and being able to work within that structure and the leg speed. And you're right, we didn't have the biggest team in the competition, but the speed with which we played was a really big reason why we were successful that year.
And then, because didn't you have like the big finish to the back end of the year? What did you come third or fourth?
Came fourth, I think. Yeah, we came fourth. We had 8 in a row. We won 8 in a row.
Yep.
And then we lost the last 2 before the final. So it was Penrith and Melbourne. I can't remember which one.
And I remember when I used to talk to Robbie, he reckons that was the best thing for you guys losing those 2 games.
Yeah, we needed a bit of a circuit breaker, I think.
That's it, yeah.
Because not that we were getting ahead of ourselves, but it kind of refocused us for the finals.
Yep.
I don't know if Robbie's told you the story about we went down to Melbourne and got dusted up by them, and we had a curfew. I know we actually didn't have a curfew. We weren't allowed to go out.
Oh.
But then a few boys snuck out the side door, which you often hear. You often hear stories about the boys leaving the side door after curfew, right? And they didn't get up to no good. They just went for a few beers and that. But there was someone keeping track of that at the hotel. So the management had tipped off someone at reception, hey, can you let us know when if any of the boys go out and when they come back and whatnot. So
was that like the old Tim Sheen's one with the jersey at
sign the jersey on the way through reception? Yeah, something like that. Anyway, we got on the bus, went to the airport, and when we got off at the airport, we were all parked at cars at Concord.
Yep.
So we got on the bus to go back to Concord from the airport. Cherry Mesha, the great Cherry Haka, he got up at the front of the bus and said, boys, when we get back to Concord, getting your training gear, we've got a session on. We heard some of you went out last night and, we're too close to the finals to let that fly. So we got back and did a flog session day after the game, off the plane.
What was the flog session? What did that involve?
Rower. All the erg machines like, rower and grinder and
So everything. So it's just
It
you
was about
played a game-
45 minutes, I reckon.
You
45
played a game
minutes.
the night before, and you've got to go back.
Yeah.
Did any of the boys put their hand up and say it was them?
No, we
or-
were all in. Didn't matter. We were all in.
Beautiful.
Yeah, it was everyone in. So, circuit breaker.
Geez, you'd want to hope you went out that time, wouldn't you?
I didn't go out.
Ah, damn. You,
What a waste.
We'll talk about that later on. You're the old RSA
Yeah, I
Marshall.
am,
You're
yeah.
the good bloke. And then, so obviously, first semi-final was against Cowboys when you flogged them?
Cowboys, yeah, big one at Homebush, yeah.
How was that? Like, because was that the first semi-final for the West Tigers?
It would have been. I didn't play
think-
semi-finals before that. Yeah,
Yeah, I think that was
it,
the first ever game for West Tigers. And then
Yeah, it was. Yeah, yeah. We rolled straight through the Cowboys. Hodjo got highest point scoring in a final. I think
was it by
record?
50 that one?
52 to something or 50. Yeah, 50
Unbelievable.
to 12 or 52 to 10, something like that. Yeah, it was a big score line.
And then your next one was the Dogs, was it?
No, we went Cowboys, Broncos at the SFS.
And that was a fair Broncos
Yeah,
side too.
no, they were a good side, man. That was a scary game because they were coming up against the heavyweights, one of the heavyweights in the comp. And, yeah, they had, like, Webke and, they had, like, star-studded pack. Dane Carlo, I think, was playing from there, and Lockyer, obviously. Like, they just had guns everywhere. But Benji had a great game that game.
Wasn't there, like, a moment, like, it was, like, neck and neck, and then Benji just broke the game apart?
Scored a long-range try.
Yep.
I think it was an intercept. I think it was a loose ball or an intercept that he scooped on and took off. But he also held up Darren Smith over the line. And it went to video ref, but, man, he got so close to scoring the try. But Benji got underneath, got the arm under and lifted him up just before the line. And it was a massive defensive play that he pulled off for us. And I think that really changes the context of the match for us. And then, going to the Dragons. Dragons and Para, I think, were the 1 and 2 that year. They were the two hot favourites to make the final, to make the GF.
Yeah, well, that was what everyone was talking about. You guys just making up the numbers.
Yeah.
Cowboys, yeah.
Yeah, and then, we took down the Dragons in the semi-final at SFS. It was a pretty big night. Swans won the GF next door, I think, that night. We were in the SFS, could hear all the commotion next door.
Yep.
And then, we come out and get the job done against the Dragons.
There's a great moment in that game, mate, I love.
What's that?
When you pick up the ball from dummy half, mate. Talk to us about it.
No, well, I was playing lock. Like, I'd started lock in the finals, and I hadn't played lock all year. I think I'd, like, come on and replaced Liam Fulton, who was lock for a big part of the year. Maybe Benny Galera had a few games of lock as well. But Sheensy had said before, as we go into that first finals match, he goes, Dane, I'm going to start you at lock, and I want you and Robbie to do double dummy half running. So if he goes, you go, or if you go, he's going to go off the back of that. You're going to play front foot footy. And then, against the Dragons, Benny Galera had run a really nice tight line. I think it was a two-step or like a little 91 or like a little drop under, and got a really quick play of the ball. And Robbie was going into dummy half, and I just shoot him. I said, let me have a run. And Robbie just jumped out of the way, and I just picked it up and cut out, and they were backtracking, got in underneath Luke Bailey, I think was at A marker, or he was at A or at marker, and he just was backtracking, so I just managed to squeeze past him, and then Clint Green...
Mate, you didn't manage to. You steamrolled him. That was one of the biggest players I've seen, and he's an Australian front rower. Give yourself a rap, mate.
Clint Greenshields was a fullback for the Dragons, and Benny Hornby was playing 7, but Clint nearly held me up, and went to video ref again, and they seen enough to get the try. So
that was a big moment in that game too.
Yeah, Benji scored first.
Yep,
off a scrum again.
That was so good, that play.
Yeah,
like Dragons were at 6s and 7s.
Yeah,
and then did you score last?
Scored at the end of the game.
At the end of the game as well.
So
but you were back at centre that time.
Paddy Richards had gone off with his ankle injury.
Yes.
I'd moved out to the centres. Shane Elford had moved to the wing. I think that was it. And then I found myself out wide, hanging out wide. We just shifted it out. We had like 2-on-1 on the edge and just fell over in the corner.
And then talk to us. So you guys are the first ones to qualify because that was the Friday night game, wasn't it?
Yes, it was. First
so
qualified.
What did you do the next day? Because obviously you probably would have thought that you're probably playing Parramatta, being red hot favourites.
Yeah.
Did you all meet up together and watch the game, or?
Yeah, we went to Paulie Whatuira's house, and he was staying at Rhodes.
Yep.
We went to his apartment, and we all sat around and watched the game. And the Cowboys shocked everyone and took down the Eels. It was a pretty good performance from the Cowboys. Obviously, the big loss they had against us at the start of the final series, they all had a bit of an honesty session, I believe, and they had to put in a good one against the Eels if they only get through, and they did. Credit to them. It was a great game.
And so you spoke about Pat Richards obviously get injured, yet play centre. I remember, like, obviously Robbie tells a lot of the stories behind not behind the mic, but behind closed doors. Was it really like the feeling like when he walked into that room, to do the fitness test, where he's all like just standing there together, just waiting to hear the result?
Yeah. So he'd obviously the injury in the Dragons game, and he'd been to see, got a scan, seen some specialists, and it was going to be touch and go, and it was more probably at the start of the week. It would have been 90-10 that he was not going to play.
Really? Well, that bad?
Yeah, it was a bad enough injury, because he could barely walk. He was in a boot, all that sort of stuff. But they said it's a grand final. We can needle it up, and you probably won't do much more damage, but it's going to be a battle, right?
Yeah.
And I'm sure his conversations were a little bit more detailed with the doc. Donald Qua, shout out Donald Qua. Anyway, he come in on the captain's run, and he'd gone out to do his fitness test. We're doing like sort of our meetings with Sheensy beforehand. We're all in one of the rooms that we'd sort of had our meeting in, and then he's walked in to the room and just given us a thumbs up, and the room erupted. Like, everyone lifted and started cheering. And I don't think he trained. I think he just got through the fitness test.
Yep.
And we had a few standbys that sort of filled in on that, but yeah, it was enormous. Like,
Do you reckon that was a bit of a turning point for you blokes? Like, that was like, we can do this. Like,
well, he'd been so important for us,
Yep.
right? So, as much crap as wingers get, wingers play a big role in.
like, we give them that much stick. It's not funny, but
Yeah, but
they start your sets and they finish them.
if you've got good wingers that do a lot for the rest of the team, then it just sets everything else up. And having Paddy available was a big bonus for us.
And so how was the week, like the grand final week? Everyone you speak to, I haven't played a grand final, so don't know what it's like, but everyone you speak to, they say it's the grouse, like it's the best.
I found it a bit too much, to be honest. Like,
Really?
there's too much going on. Like, it's outside the normal. And Sheensy tried to keep it as normal as possible, but you got media every day. You've got fan days, and this is not taken away from the fan days are awesome because you feel so good about it all, but it's just like so much going on.
Yep.
Grand final breakfast, which we stayed in town for one night. So we
Is
came.
that the day before the game, or is that?
No, it was a Thursday morning, I think, that at that
Okay.
time. It's changed a little bit over the years.
Yep.
But yeah, we had the grand final breakfast, which meant we were up early on a Thursday morning, did the breakfast, then maybe went back and did some training. But there was a lot in the week, and a lot of attention, and it was cool to be a part of it. But it was pretty draining. Like,
it would be, yeah.
you get towards game day, and probably because I was so young too, like it was new.
So how old are you at this period?
22. So
how good's that?
maybe that was just being young and not really understanding how to navigate that.
Yep.
And no one else in the squad had either. Like, everyone was pretty new to it, so there wasn't a lot of shared experience. You look at those teams that have been in multiple grand finals, like the Bronx and the Storm and Panthers.
Yeah.
Those weeks would be so fun for them now because like they just go, "Oh, we've done this before. Like, this is awesome."
It's nothing new to them.
Yeah.
And then so we speak about the game comes and that moment, obviously, see a lot of people that probably watched it go, why was Benji defending on the wing? What was the game plan behind that?
Yeah, I think it was just he was obviously defending when you're 3 into wing. It's a big difference in terms of like your requirement as a half. Like you have to make as many tackles, decisions, and it just, I think maybe with Paddy's injury as well, it just kind of helped Paddy to not have to go back and kick return like you normally would as a winger. I just think it was a better defensive line on our edge when Benji was defending out the wing. But I think if I might be mistaken thinking back, but at different points of the field, it changed. So maybe when we got up defending our own line, Benji pushed back into 3 in, and then we had like Paddy back on the wing.
Yep.
But like when they're coming out of yardage and that, then Benji was out wider. But however it worked, it meant that Benji was available to sort of be a part of those kick returns, right? Which was more space for him, and it protected Paddy with the injury in the grand final as well, which was great. So I can't quite remember what the decision or when it was made to defend that way, but it's definitely saved him up. He was so effective with the ball in hand too, Benji, because of that.
Unbelievable. So he slices through. Where are you?
I'm on the bench. So,
you're on the bench at this time.
Yeah,
because it was a tough, gritty start, wasn't it?
Yeah, it was pretty back and forth.
Yeah.
They gifted us the first try. If you remember, right, it was a loose pass in the in goal, and then. Yeah, they had a few opportunities. There was one that got pulled back for an obstruction. I think Matty Bowen went through from memory.
Luke O'Donnell went through, I think Luke O'Donnell did a lead line and he sort of took out one of your players.
I might have been on the inside of it. I'm not sure, but there was an obstruction, and because I was thereabouts, I was quite thankful that it wasn't obstruction. I'm going, man, did I drop off there?
Yeah.
Or I couldn't remember. And so it was back and forth. But that play before halftime, we'd sort of traded blows. I was on the bench because I'd gone through that rotation with Liam through the whole final series. And you could just feel the whole stadium rise when Benji broke through, and there's like everyone started lifting. There's something's happening here, and then not many people picked up the flick pass.
That's what I was about to ask you. Like, did you see it live?
I didn't see it live. No. I just seen Benji break through, Paddy cut back, and then he gets the fend out on Rod Jensen, and the big fend. And scores a try, and then fist pumps, right? Like, just goosebumps now thinking about it.
Sammy's got goosebumps inside.
But like we didn't see the flick pass. Just thought what a play from Benji to break through the line, and then Paddy had a bit of a juggle too on because of a bit of a low pass, and then they went to the big screen for the replay, and it was slowed down, and it was a blindside flick pass.
Right.
So like he's looking that way and flicked it that way, which is like touch football kind of skills.
For anyone at home, go in the backyard now and try that. It is so hard to land it perfect and
to
at
hit the
full
mark.
pace.
Yeah, and the crowd like sort of when they seen that at the big screen, it was like gasps. Everyone gasped because they didn't realise that was on. And then you see the broadcast afterwards.
You got to listen to Fatty.
You hear Fatty go like just flip out about that kind of play in that moment. Like for a 21-year-old kid at the time, was pretty impressive.
No fear on the man.
No.
And you know what the best was? Just the big fend. Like Paddy Richards catches the ball, swaps the ball in the other hand, and then just poor old Rod Jensen. I cop that.
Yeah. He'd come up with some big plays, Rod Jensen, defensively in the finals too.
Yeah,
so
he was outstanding. He was like a super sub for him as
well.
He
was, yeah. So that was unfortunate for him, but obviously great for us.
That's it. So obviously you get past that moment. Half time comes. You come out. I think who was Big Hombre last try scorer? Toddy?
Yeah, he was. Yeah.
How's that moment? Because that sort of blew it out a bit.
Yeah, that was pretty much the end of the game.
You were comfortable from there.
So Paulie Fats again made a really good run from dummy half, split him all the way up there in the field, and it kind of caught us all off guard because we're early in the tackle count. You don't expect like a clean break.
Yeah.
He went through, and then we've all had to sort of jump on our bikes and try and catch up to him. And then Hodjo takes it at first receiver, and he just sees the space, and he just goes, I'm just going to put a kick through, drops it through. Toddy's running through. I think he and Liam were sort of neck and neck for the ball, and then Toddy's landed on it. And
didn't Toddy have a busted hamstring or something?
Yeah, he carried an injury. He did carry an injury through the whole finals, I think.
Yeah.
Or early in the finals he got it. But yeah, he had to move then to beat Liam out for the ball.
I think he was always going to win that one, the big one.
It was a good stacks on afterwards. But then from there, it was just a pretty quick countdown to the end of the game. And
the funny thing about the end of the game was I remember watching it live with Channel 9 was like the interviews. Yeah, you didn't swear, did you?
Nah, no way. No, I kept it.
Our mate Hino.
I spoke like a 20-year-old kid when I was talking, but
you were, mate.
But Timmy Gilbert interviewed me, so I think depending on who you got,
bit more stiffer, Timmy, than when you got Matty Johns.
Matty Johns is like, hey, it's Matty. Yeah. So like the boys were a little bit relaxed. I don't know if Hino, Paddy, Benny Galea, I think Buff, like Anthony Frankie did one as well, but he wound it back straight away. He apologised. So
Hino was the best.
Yeah.
Like that just shows you he's in his element, he's in his moment.
Yeah.
And it's his time to celebrate.
Yeah, like obviously, like I can't stand swearing on broadcast. But in the moment, it's just like you get it. They just got swept up, and the interviewer. I blame the interviewer,
Matty Johns. He's one of the greats, mate. He's one of the greats. So you've got a couple more years at Tigers, and then you obviously make the move to Canterbury. You've been coached by Tim Sheens your whole career. How was the difference with Desi Hasler? Because you hear of all these intense stories about Desi. What was the difference with Desi and Tim?
Yeah, well, when I first got to the Dogs, Kevin Moore was the coach.
Kevin Moore,
Kevin Moore was my first coach. So I had him for a couple of years, and then Desi came in my third year at the club. Kevy was a champion bloke. Loves his golf, Kevy. And so it was a good chance of getting a golf day in with Kevy as a coach. But really easygoing guy. Obviously, talking earlier about DNA and about what it means to be a part of a club. Well, the Moore family synonymous with the Bulldogs, and Kevy being in that family brought a lot of that to the club. And that's the first thing I noticed about being in the club. Very family orientated when I got there. And you said I've been at the Tigers for my whole career so far. Big move to go.
Mm-hmm.
I was made to feel very welcome when I got there. My wife, my daughter at the time, my first daughter, like we felt really a part of the club straight away.
Yep.
Fast forward to Desi, the mad scientist. Like, he was pretty full on and intense, but he set a really high work rate and expectation, and I love that. Like, it pushed me to go really hard, and I had some good grounding with my first 2 years there at the club. They trained really hard.
Yep.
Tony Grimaldi was our conditioner, the big lobster, and I had to train hard to make myself, a part of the group and sort of set a standard for myself. And then when Desi got there, he went up again, really intense. Always the first to arrive, last to leave kind of mentality. Super detailed. Probably that's where the similarities with him and Sheensy are. Like, they're very detailed in what they give you. It's a purpose behind everything. And one thing that Sheensy was always really good at was getting you to understand what you're really good at in your role and executing that for the team. Desi was the same, but Desi was also, if you went to Desi with information about something you want to do differently, like, he'd take it on board.
Oh, yeah.
But you had to give him good information, or else he'd just dismiss it. Like, that
So you couldn't just go in there and say, I think we should do this. You'd have to have a reason behind it.
Yeah, or like, I should be doing this or whatever. Like, you had to give me some data or something that supports what you're saying.
Yep.
Like, that was really big from him. So like, it was an intense few years under him, and what was he there? 5 years at the club, and
well, you were there for one of the grand finals, but you were 18th man, weren't you?
yeah, I was 18th man.
But you played the whole season, didn't you? And then
I played 20 rounds or 19, 20 rounds. I done my medial in round 20 against the Eels, and man, I played nearly 80 minutes every game on the right edge. Then a bloke called Josh Jackson came in when I was injured, and the team was going so well I was out for 6 weeks, and that was leading straight into the finals. And when I got back, I was gutted because I was having such a good year. I'd say it was probably, apart from 05, was the best year of footy I played.
Yep.
So when it came time to get back on the field, and I knew that there was a solid group still playing, I went, man, it's going to be hard to crack it. And I wasn't in good shape, like, as in, it took me a while to sort of get through the injury.
What was that? Was that the medial?
Yeah, medial. Yep. So got into the finals, and I was 18th man for every match of the finals, waiting for an injury, which is like a really bad thing to say, but that's the position you're in, right? You're waiting for something to go wrong.
You're not playing unless you get a suspension or injury.
Yeah. So because the team was just going so well. Not that I wanted that for any of the players. It's just like, that's the position you're in, and there's no games for me to sort of stake a claim. I'm just waiting, and. But at the same time, we had such a good year, such an enjoyable team to be a part of, and I thought we were going to beat the Storm. I thought we were good enough to do it. I thought we'd done it all year so well, but on the night they just turned up and just crushed the game plan, like, really well, and that's what you get with them, right? They just he knows what to do to get the most out of his players, but also how to do it, and he did it well that night. And
so, being like your second GF you're involved in. Because this wouldn't have been many of those blokes in that Bulldog squad that have been in the grand final, had there?
No, I don't. Yeah, I'm trying to think back of it through that roster. I don't think there was. No.
Do you reckon Melbourne handled that week better?
Probably David Staggs was young, and I think
Mick.
Yeah, Mick was around, but he was injured for the 06 Broncos grand final. Staggy played in it.
Yeah.
I think Staggy played centres in that 06 grand final. Anyway, so there was only a handful of guys. But Beastie would have been there as well, I'd say. So, yeah. I don't know if we didn't. I think we handled it okay. I thought we went through the week well. I think it was literally just in the match. They came with a good game plan, and they had some really good set plays that we weren't prepared for. Like, we had a really good defensive year, but they picked us apart. So
even like that Billy Slater try, I think Hoffman, was it?
Yeah, it was like an outline,
and
it split our half and back rower, like a 3 and 4 in defender, and it was just because of the deception, and then you get that try. So
it was a funny moment in that grand final. One of Triple M's very own
got a bit
Jimmy Graham,
a bit close,
a little bit too close to someone's ear.
Yeah.
That's what game goes on.
Yeah, it does.
Now he's hosting certain shows. He's on fire. Then obviously a year later, did you ever have how does this work? So you started your career at West Tigers. You've been at Bulldogs for 3 years?
4 years.
4 years? Yeah. And in that start of the 4th year, you have some talks about coming back to the Tigers.
Yeah, I was nearly going to sign to stay at the Dogs for a year. So I had conversations with Des, and he was happy to offer me another year. It's going to be like just kind of like roll on, same contract, just roll on another year. And I was playing like not too bad.
Yep.
But then my manager at the time had come to me and just said, look, the Tigers are interested in getting you back. There's a lot of young guys there that are local juniors, have been around for a long time. it'd be not bad idea to finish your career off at the club you started, and obviously knew that I loved the club as well. And it was a 2-year deal, so that was probably the only difference: of 2-year deals versus 1 year at 31 at the time.
Yep.
I thought, that's not a bad thing. Money was comparable; it wasn't much difference. So it wasn't as if I was going to go back for a huge windfall.
Yeah.
But yeah, that was basically it. And I had a conversation with Des, but I think he'd already spoken to either whoever at the Tigers or to my manager, and he knew that that offered me something. And we had a really good conversation. He said, and it was mid-season. He said, mate, he goes, it'd be good for you to finish off where you started. No ill feeling. Like, I understand it. We'll see out the year and then off you go, sort of thing. And
doesn't that make your decision a lot easier?
Yeah,
I
yeah.
understand.
Yeah, it was. I appreciated the upfront conversation with him about it, and I played the rest of the season there at the Dogs and enjoyed that season. We got bundled out of the finals first week against Newcastle, but yeah, it was a happy transition back to the Tigers.
So you come back to the Tigers. Is that when Mick Potter was our coach?
Yeah, 2014. Yeah.
How was the difference in the club to where is that when you first left?
The facility itself hadn't changed.
Not like it is now.
Walked through definitely not like it is now. But I walked through the doors, and that was like, not that you don't get precious about those things. Like, the weights weigh the same, the field's the same size, and all that sort of stuff. But I'd come from the Belmore Centre of Excellence for 4 years.
Because they were like one of the first ones.
One of the first to do it, yeah. Back to Concord, which had the same lockers as when I left. Same gym, same equipment, everything was the same.
What was the lockers were 3 planks of wood, weren't they?
Yeah, something like that. It's pretty much the same. But yeah, it was in you could feel like it was in a bit of a weird spot, like trying to figure out the style of footy that the team wanted to play.
Well, you said it before, the culture and the identity.
Yeah, and I think it was probably a bit all over the place, if I'm honest. Like, it was, there's a lot of young guys coming through, but it was different. It was different to when I left, and obviously a lot of different faces. When I left, you were a real young kid when I left.
I was
you had
17.
to play first grade,
Yeah, I was 17.
You were smashing in the preseason with us. I remember actually doing the beep test on the hockey fields behind Concord, the old hockey fields that were there.
Yeah, the back ones. Yeah.
And you crushed it. I go, this guy's a front rower, and he's like smoking the yo-yo it was then. So
closet training, mate. Closet training.
First preseason.
Yeah, you know what it's like. So how was it like? Because obviously, like, I was there and I knew you were one of the old. I was super pumped when you come back, mate. 05 legend, and there was like I wasn't even one of the youngest. We had a lot of young kids. Did you feel like your responsibility was to look after a lot of the young blokes?
It was, but I found it tricky, like, to try and. This is something you battle with when you're, I think, an older guy in a squad. Is like, they're your teammates, right? And there's obviously a generational gap because you're very different. You come through a different time, but you're trying to be friends with them, but at the same time you want to be firm as a senior guy and a veteran, right? So how do I be firm without making them off me, and then like losing a group, or and it can happen really easily in a group, and I feel like that was a real risk for that team at the time, was that if you're too hard on some players, they may get off you and then start to talk, and then you become an outsider rather than a leader, and so striking out that balance is really tricky.
Well, I think that was probably one of your best assets, but
I tried. Hopefully,
please,
it was still tough going for those few years I was back there. But like,
the thing with the kids that was hard is the generational gap is a lot different. Like, when you come through, Hellas, they just tell you straight away. Even when I first come through, and that was probably how long? You were away for 4 years and you come back, and like you've got to baby them a lot.
Yeah,
that's something I've noticed. Even now, like, I'm at your situation, what you're talking about now at Manly.
Yeah.
Like, I'm 33 and I've got kids that are 20. Yeah. Like, they were watching me play first grade when I was in primary school.
Yeah, it's different, and like, it's just a different generation. It's not like nothing against the type of personalities or whatever. It's just, and that's why I admire coaches that have been around for a long time. Like, I think of someone like Wayne Bennett, who's mid-70s, right, has seen how many generations of football player come through. He's found a way to resonate with every single group, and Craig Bellamy's no different.
Mate,
like,
they reckon Wayne's about to re-sign again.
Like, to be able to cut through with different groups in that way, you have to be open to like learning and understanding, but still maintaining that authority. Like, and I think that's a skill that those guys have down pat. That's why they've been able to like coach as long as they have.
Yeah, definitely. And then you had a great preseason that first one. I remember how tough that was.
It was good preseason.
It was a good one.
It's
but
tough.
then remember the first game, mate.
At
Camden.
Kirkham Oval at
Yeah,
Camden.
Kirkham Oval, Teddy's home ground.
Yeah.
Mate, you were flying at hooker. And what was it? The last quarter, wasn't it?
Yeah, last quarter. So I think Mania Cherrington was playing hooker with me
Yep.
at the time. We were sort of like on and off,
Mhm.
rotating. And then the end of the game was last quarter, and they put me back on, maybe to give them a spell or whatever. And I took a dart from dummy half, only like 15 metres out
Yep.
from their line. And got one of their big boppers dropped on my left ankle and snapped my ankle and dislocated my foot. Were you on the field at the time?
Nah, because I played the first half, but then I
Yeah.
remember coming on to see you, and we could see a little bit of your bone. Eh?
Well, the bone it didn't get out, but it was sideways. My
Yeah,
foot, my foot was pointing, like the sole of my
the
foot. I could see
dislocation,
it.
eh?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And Scando was our trainer, our blue shirt.
Yep.
Shane Elford was a blue shirt for Perrin, two of the 05 boys. So they've come on the field, and Scando's looked down and gone, oh.
That's not what you want to hear from a trainer.
And Spud's come over and gone, oh, give me some water. And he goes, it's not good, Dino. And so that was not a great return to the club. First trial match, snapped my ankle, out for 4 months. Curtis Siren had done his foot the game at that same game as well. So we were both in for surgery.
I don't think they've played at Kirkham since.
Actually, the field was in good shape. Actually,
It was actually really good.
Yeah,
You can't complain. It was just unlucky day of us.
Yeah.
We're playing against Penrith, I think it was.
There's Penrith.
Yeah. And then so you get back. Obviously, the next year is the Robbie Farah saga, and of all blokes to have to take so for people home, Robbie Farah plays Origin, then comes back to the club, and JT tells him that he's playing reserve grade because he wants to move him on, and then with no other hookers at the club, one man has to step up and take the role. How did you feel like getting put in that position?
Yeah, it was so awkward, man. Oh, you were around it. You seen
mate.
what it was like for me, and obviously Robbie was gutted, right? Because he's he loves the Tigers and passionate about the Tigers, and he's been one of the best hookers of the last 2 decades. So he had every right to be disappointed with the position he found himself in. And JT was a coach, and JT had an idea of what he wanted to do, and it didn't include Robbie. I think they were butting heads about game plan and structure and what Robbie's role was and all that sort of stuff. And like, no need to get into it. Like, they had obviously had their
Too many Chiefs, not enough Indians.
They had their disagreements, and then I got thrown in the middle, and it was awkward because Robbie and I, as I mentioned earlier, debuted together. We'd known each other for a long time, and he was one of my closest teammates. So yeah, it was awkward. It was weird. I felt a little bit of pressure too from like fans and that, because fans are blowing up about the fact that he wasn't playing, and to vent their frustrations, they'd criticise the shit out of me, which was like pretty hard. Like, I'm trying to finish my career out.
You're trying to help us young blokes.
Love playing with like yourself and Mitch and Brooksy and Teddy, and being around those guys and Noffer at the time. Like, it was like I had like a lot of joy in being a part of that group.
Yep.
So to have that sort of like just constantly going, it was week after week, because it was a saga, right?
It was relentless, mate.
And it was disappointing, but what I did value, and I still, this is not the majority of fans that were saying that. It was just bits and pieces that came through, and I still had some really nice things coming from fans. Don't get me wrong, but also, like, you boys are all really solid to me as well through it all. You understood that it was awkward. You understood that I was in a tough spot.
Mate, I was the captain, mate.
Yeah, you were the skipper.
I was going for a similar sort of thing to you,
So
not positional wise.
So yeah, it was that gave me a lot of comfort, like, to know that the guys that I was still running out the field with were supporting me, and did make it an enjoyable last few years.
It was good. I remember, obviously, a lot of the away trips, always try to have a beer because you never knew when it was going to be your last one.
Yeah.
I think we had a good one in New Zealand.
Yeah, because you got to try in New Zealand.
Yeah,
I'll put you
Put
over.
me over. It got me off the nude run. It was like round 25.
Yeah, right near the line, just jump out, little
I
look.
could never thank you more enough that night, mate.
I was happy with myself. Good hooker player. I
That was
didn't
great
expect
play.
it from
Just
myself.
Eyes up, mate. Eyes up. But like the last game was that was a bit of a disappointment, wasn't it?
Yeah.
I felt like as a group we let you down. Like, not just the club, but I think, like, as club legend in yourself, all we had to do was have a draw or win, and we make the semi-finals.
Yeah.
And the performance we go out and put against Canberra, oh man,
It was an awful performance, as a group. But
like, we didn't even, like, I felt sorry for you in another aspect, that we were all crook that week.
yeah.
And you didn't even get to enjoy your last week of training as a first grade footballer.
I think there was maybe 4 of us that didn't train
The captains,
well, maybe Thursday onwards.
Yeah.
And our doc at the time was going around and trying to give us all like antibiotics and all sorts of things, trying to help us get ready for the game, because it was such a big moment. And everyone was run down. Like it was tough going. Not that that's an excuse, but it was a pretty awful performance.
50 at Leichhardt Oval, wasn't it?
Like, so chance to make the finals, draw or win, and you're in. 18,000 hanging off the roof, the roofs next door, and that. It was all set up Sunday afternoon, sunny Leichhardt Oval. So it was like how it started, how it finished for me, like footy career, and finished on 249 games too. So
no way.
So that was like a little bit of a bit of moment.
You know what summed up that game? Like, BJ Lalua goes down the right edge, half break, then throws a Hail Mary flick pass, and I think Rapana picks it up and just scores. And I think it was 16-0 after 8 minutes.
You haven't forgotten about it, easy.
Oh, mate. That's a hard one to let go.
No, I agree.
That was a tough year with some off-field stuff that happened as well. So, so you've retired. How's the transition been since you've retired, mate?
Yeah, good question, mate. Like I'm 8 years down now, so like it's well and truly in the rearview mirror. It's good to reminisce and.
So one more for that. Were you nervous to transition into the workforce from rugby league?
No, like so I'd made the announcement I was going to retire early in the season. It might have been June or July that I made the decision. I'd made the decision before the season started, but I announced it mid-year. So I wasn't nervous about work prospects after footy. I'd lined a few things up. To work at the NRL and also at the club. So I'd kind of like got a few part-time roles sussed and that was not a worry for me. But the reality of your last game is a weird thing, right? So that Canberra game and you're just going through the weeks preparing and then that last game, it's the last game, big moment. But it was the situation we were in was more front of mind. Like we've got to make the finals. We want to make the finals. So when the hooter goes, the last hooter, I'm on the field in the in goal. I think they scored right at the death. Anyway, the hooter goes and you just go, oh, that's it. Like I'm done. Like, wow. And it's like really shocking. It like kind of like in that moment, I was like, man, like I'm not going to be doing this ever again. Like not at least not at this stage. And I didn't have any desire to play on after that. Like I was proper done. So that was like a weird experience. But I was fortunate enough that I had a role in the game. I had a couple of roles in the game where I was working alongside the people that support players in transition. So they were very subtle in their approach, but there were little things along the way that helped me sort of move through that sort of phase of transition. And people go through it in everyday life when they move from one job to another or when they retire from the workforce altogether. There's transitions everywhere for people, and experience is a little bit different in sport because it's such a bubble, and particularly in rugby league here in Sydney. It is such a bubble, and you become so tied to that identity of being a footy player that to all of a sudden break away from that and stop talking about yourself in that sense is really like probably the biggest challenge. And that's the first thing that like in my old role in wellbeing that we talk about with ex-players is like that letting go. It's sort of like it's a bit of grieving you go through. Like you got to let that go and move on to the next thing, and you go through ups and downs. You start thinking, I reckon it was probably 2 years worth of like, maybe I could have played a bit longer.
Really?
Maybe I could have got my 250. Yeah. Maybe I could still play now. Knowing full well that I couldn't, but just moments of those would pop up. First round of 2017, my first year of retirement, you boys played against South at the stadium and had a good win. First round of the year.
That was Farah's first game for South.
Yeah. So first round, good win. And I came into the sheds as an employee and stood outside the circle while you guys sang the song. That was really hard to watch. Like, because that's the moments, the bits that you miss is the camaraderie and being around each other and celebrating the wins. They're the good times. Nothing better than a win, right? And that feeling afterwards when you sit together and
so good.
You've played well. And it was a great game that you boys played. So that was hard. And there's little moments like that always sort of pop up. But I was well prepared for work and got a really good family around me. Like my wife Rochelle, really well, is a great person to bring you down to earth and keep you grounded. And my kids as well, like were very grounding. So you've got a young family. It changes your whole mindset and your approach, and that becomes a really important part of what comes next.
Oh, it's good. It's sort of you got a really good balance, not just that footy, but away from the footy, which really helped you.
Yeah.
One thing I'd love to know, you spend a little bit of time in the bunker. Run us through the process. Like, a lot of people don't understand how it all works. Like, is it just you by yourself or, like, the camera angles? Because people only go off what they see with the video ref and what they see on the coverage. But you've got so many more screens, don't you? So
just to clarify, I look after the injury surveillance bunker. I oversee the injury surveillance bunker, which is our HIA process, the independent doctors and all that. When you go into the bunker, there's 3 different spaces. There's a match review committee, so they're in a room where
Yep.
they watch the game live, and they obviously tag moments that could come up as a charge, and they are pretty meticulous in what they do.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, they get all the angles in there. So we use a system called Hawkeye, which is pretty known around the world as a technology that supports professional sports. So match review, then there's a bunker official. So
Yep. Is that the ones? It's a referee now. Isn't it?
referees that make decisions, right?
So they don't have any ex-players in there anymore.
No, so they've got a supervisor that sits there and watches over them, and just
So
there.
they're the ones that we hear when they go back to talk.
The video referees. So the match official, the main review official, is the one that you hear when it goes to broadcast. So they're in their own room, big room, high tech, looks to grouse. They've got all the angles that are available from the broadcaster, and they can scrub back and forth. It's high definition, frame by frame, and they are very diligent, man. Like, they've got good operators. The referees themselves are really experienced, and it's a pretty slick operation, and you don't really get an appreciation for it until you get in there.
Yep.
And getting in there to watch a game, you've got to be – it's a bit of an acceptance to get in there, like, because, it's obviously it's a sensitive area, so there's got to be processes to get people in there. But anyone that goes in there that I know, I've seen them operate at a distance. Like, it is very slick.
Yeah.
And they do have, some really good technology at their fingertips to make those decisions. And humans are humans. They're going to see things differently, or they're going to make mistakes from time to time.
Yep.
But since the introduction of the bunker, as in match officials, the correct decisions that we've got in the game would be like miles ahead of where they were without it. And I think when you get that, there's more consistency across the board for all teams. The competition has to be more even when you're getting more things right.
Yep.
Because law of averages, everyone's going to get a dud call from time to time,
100%.
but they're going to come back around. And over time, everyone's on a more even playing field.
Yep.
That's my view anyway. And then there's the injury surveillance bunker, which I mentioned. And they sit in another room where you've got operators, you've got
So is
spotters.
that for like concussions and all
That's
that?
for concussions. So in that room, you got a spotter, so that person's just watching the game live. Tag, head impact, tag. They're just tagging everything.
Yep.
Then there's another reviewer and a doctor, and the reviewer and the doctor work in tandem to look at each incident that's been tagged and make a decision on what you want to do with that. So they're using the same technology as the video referees. They'll look at each incident, and then they'll say, well, we've seen something here that could indicate a head injury,
Okay.
and we're going to make a decision on it.
So are they connected to the ground? Are they the ones that say, oh, we think we might have seen a category 2 or category 1?
Yeah, so the doctors will make that assertion.
Yep.
There's an operator that's on comms to the match officials,
Yep.
to both doctors from each team and to the trainers, the orange shirt trainers. So there's a broadcast announcement that goes out. So when the referee blows time off and stops the game and singles out a player that has to go off because it's come from the injury surveillance bunker, the referee heard it, the touch judges heard it, the doctors, the orange shirt trainers heard it because they've all got comms, right?
And that's why sometimes they'll just stop the game at the play of the ball,
Yep.
whether there's momentum or whatever, because they're the ones got
priority
the
is safety of the player,
Yep.
right? And it's only they'll stop it at their first available opportunity. So when ball's in play and it's moving around, they're not going to stop the game then because they can't. It's not going to happen. But it's next play the ball. Yeah, let's stop and get the player off the field, right? Or whenever that break in play is, and then they'll obviously go up and do their assessment. But in the bunker, the doctors that are making those decisions, they're working through a series of checks. They're looking for a head impact. They're looking at the reaction of the player.
Yep.
Mate, they don't miss a lot. And again, without those eyes up there, your doctor and your trainers that are on the field have got so much other things to worry about that they're not going to see it all.
They're also getting messages from upstairs.
Yeah, so there's lots of things going on that sort of complicate things for the team staff. Having this extra support service with the doctors is been like a real blessing for at least the team medical staff, and they do a pretty good job of what they do.
And for people at home, what is the difference between Cat 1 or Category 1 and a Category 2?
Probably the biggest thing to sort of distinguish between them is a definite call. So like if you're looking at a player that's stumbling all over the place, you'd say they're definitely stumbling. It's called motor incoordination or ataxia. So they've definitely got that. Then that's a Category 1. Now, if you see a player that stumbles after a head impact, and it's all got to be in the context of a head impact.
Yep.
But if you see a player that maybe stumbles, but you're not quite sure, it's not conclusive on video, then a doctor might say, well, I think I've seen there's possibly a stumble there, but I'm not quite sure.
Mm-hmm.
So here's a category 2. Get them off the field and assess them.
Yep.
Then the doctor will take them in the sheds. You've done assessments yourself.
Yep.
Go through that process. So that's like that assessment it's not 100%, but it's a pretty good tool to help doctors like understand if there has been like a head injury, and then they can make a decision from there.
And if it's a 1, it's 11 days stand down.
Well, if it's a 1 called from the bunker,
Yep.
right, that typically means the player can't go back in that day, but the concussion diagnosis is only made by your team doctor.
Okay.
When a player is diagnosed with a concussion, it's 11-day stand down.
Yep.
So, but it has to be that decision around concussion is left with your team doctor.
Yep.
But there's a whole bunch of processes that go on throughout every week. We review every single HIA, every single head impact that we record. We review it all, and then we work with the chief medical officer at the NRL, with the club doctors around, path to return to play for any player that's in that position.
And then, so when we were in Vegas, I remember seeing you in the lobby having a chat. Where you went to a concussion course, didn't you?
No, I just went to to Pittsburgh, to the University of Pittsburgh Medical Center, and there's a professor there called Michael Collins. Professor, they call him Mickey Collins.
Yep.
So he's got a concussion clinic there. So Wayne Pearce, Junior Pearce, another Tigers great.
Yep.
Obviously one of our commissioners and as our most experienced commissioner.
Mm-hmm.
He made a connection with Mickey Collins a little while ago, and it was more just a bit of a fact-finding mission to see what they do at their concussion clinics and see if there's any applications we might have in the game here in Australia. One of the things that we have to be mindful of with anything related medically around player safety, concussion obviously at the top of that list, is making sure we're in front of like what's best practice around the world. What is there out there that we need to bring into our game that's going to keep moving us forward in terms of player safety. And so it was all an exploration, go to see what they do at that clinic, relay that back to our medical staff here in Australia, make some connections, and then, see what comes of it. So at the moment, it was purely just to understand some more stuff. What it turns into, we're not sure yet. We're still working through what it would look like down the track.
And are you happy with how far it's come and the process that we're doing?
Yeah, I think the injury surveillance bunker that I've just given you sort of a rundown on is comparable to the NFL's injury surveillance, right? So they've got, in terms of technology and processes, they've got like our processes are actually been stricter over the last few years. They've made some changes to theirs after some pressure through some incidents that happened over the last few years, but same technology, very similar sort of process in terms of spotters, doctors, and the way that they run things, but. Now, I think our injury surveillance bunker is like up there in world collision sport as one of the best support services.
Yep.
And then you couple that with our protocols around players not returning to play, like the 11-day stand down. There's stand downs in pretty much all collision sports at the moment, except for NFL and NHL. The North American sports don't have them. But rugby's got a stand down period. AFL's got a stand down period. We've got it at community level as well. So there's been huge improvements in taking a conservative approach to it. We still have to understand a lot more about, managing concussion and recovery from concussion and rehab.
It's not going to happen overnight. There's going to be a long process.
There's always more you can learn on anything.
Yeah.
But I think from the time I started playing to the time I finished to now, it's just incrementally gotten better and better. And
for example, imagine you had to do a HIA when you first come through.
Yeah, the HIAs, then, so 2003 I debuted, and the real strict processes didn't probably come in until maybe 2010 to 12 sort of range, I reckon. It started jumping up again. So, but even then, there were still good checks and balances. It's just that it's evolved as the information that we've got has gotten better, and it'll continue to do so. So we have to. It's on us to keep staying ahead of that and making sure we're doing the most we can for players.
Well, personally, I think you're in the right direction because, like at the start of each year, we've got to do, your CAT.
Yes, SCAT. Yes, so you got to do baseline,
which I find it is the hardest test ever with the one with the cards.
That's a cognogram.
That is the hardest test, mate. I fail that all. That does my head in. Every time, like each club I've been at, which I've been at a few, the manager's like, mate, you failed. You got to do it again. You get a better baseline. You got to be quicker. It's not about getting it right. It's about getting quicker.
Well, it's a bit of both. There's different measures. It's there's accuracy and there's speed involved in that sort of stuff there. That cog sport test or the cognogram, that's managed by a third party.
Oh, okay.
So they've got their own systems that evaluate your results, which, again, it's us relying on experts in the field to give us, where your baseline's at and give us your scores and tell us whether or not you're right to go.
Everyone's baseline is different.
Yeah, everyone's baseline is different, mate. And, it's, again, stay ahead of it.
So talk to us about your other love, mate. You're a commentator for the ABC?
Yes.
Mate, so how did you get into that?
Well, I retired in 16, November of 2016. The great Andrew Moore gave me a call one day randomly. I was at a Pacific leadership camp for the NRL, actually, with Nigel Vungana, if you remember the great Nigel.
Nige.
Anyway, Maury called me, like, it was a random number, and I just answered it. We were at dinner that night, and he goes, "Hey, it's Andrew Moore from the ABC. How you going?" I said, "Oh, g'day, Andrew. How you going?" He goes, "Mate, I just got your number from Bobcat. I'm just wondering, have you ever thought about commentating, or has that ever been on your radar?" And I said, yeah, I'd love to commentate. Not thought about it once in my life.
Never done it? Like never?
Never done it, never thought about it. And then, he just, he said, "Look, we're going to, Bobcat's sort of winding back a little bit of his commitment, so we need to fill some spots. Would you be interested in coming and trying it out?" I said, "Yeah, sign me up. I'd love to have a crack." Got me in at the All-Stars match in 2017 up in Newcastle. Got to interview Laurie Daly in my first ever interview, which was like, for me...
So were you doing sideline? Or
I was doing sideline,
yeah.
And I crap myself. Like, Laurie Daly is one of my childhood heroes, and I got to interview him. And he addressed me as Dean when I started interviewing too, so he knew who I was. Like, here's me, like, fanboying like a footy head.
Yeah.
So I was pretty buzzed out that Laurie Daly was my first interview, addressed me by my name, and that was the start of it. And I've done it now since 2017. So this is like my 8th season of doing it,
and still enjoying it.
I love it. Yeah, it's such like I've grown to love the game more through doing that work with ABC.
Oh, really?
And
wow.
I just appreciate, when you play, you hate teams.
Yes.
I don't hate any team anymore. Like, I love watching footy because I appreciate athletes in every squad, and I love seeing good footy players. I live in the Shire, so by default, I have to love the Sharks, right? But love seeing someone like Sam Stonestreet the other week scoring his debut match. Love seeing some of the talent that are playing at all squads, I used to hate Manly. I used to hate playing against Manly. But I can obviously know you, but
Brooksy.
Brooksy's there. I met Cherry a few years ago now. And
but you know what? Half the team's Tigers now at Manly.
Yeah.
Paseka, Alawai.
Yeah. Tene Halatau,
yeah. Humsy,
Josh, yeah.
Apart from that.
So like doing the ABC work has given me probably a newfound love for the game, and it's
you know what I love as well, like as a player, I love seeing you there, like, hey, as walking off the bench, or
the guys would always laugh up in the box when you'd give me stick, you'd call me Topper, right, and they'd go Topper, and then I have to explain that story, and then
bit of GST from Woods,
yeah, and then James was always good for an interview. It always used to wrap me up on there as well.
That's good. Like sometimes, you could be frustrated after a loss, or you'd be super excited after a win. But then when I see you, it's like, oh, it's Dino, come here.
Even when you jump in when I'm interviewing someone else and tackle me.
I'm just happy to see you, mate. It's good, mate. And the players love that. And you don't give a stick. You just ask the questions that people want to hear, mate.
And that's one thing I think I've navigated really well in the commentary role is that I don't bag players. I call a mistake a mistake.
Yeah.
And when a player's not having a great game, you can call that for what it is. But there's always no player wants to be doing that, right? Yourself. No one ever wants to make a mistake or have a bad game. And
that's exactly.
You just want to see players bounce back and do their best, and that's why I appreciate the role.
I'm very similar, but I only bag referees, especially you, Adam G. Because I know Adam G listens to this podcast.
Mate, they're all fantastic blokes and girls as well. I see them around the office all the time.
Yeah, he's a legend.
I get called the referees union boss by some people because I stick up for them so much.
I thought you were a good bloke, Hullis, until you told me that, mate. But honestly,
you'll change your tune when you're not on the field anymore.
Mate, but I can't thank you enough for coming today, mate, and doing Woodsy's Footy Club tour. Mate, thank you so much, and hope you see you doing some ABC commentary around the ground.
Thanks, mate. It was a pleasure.
Cheers, big
Love
fella.
you, Woodsy.
Thanks, mate.